Welcome back to my Mind Mashups. Are you ready for another deep dive? Because today we're going to crack the code of language itself. Have you ever thought about how a word as simple as mother could connect us back to ancient languages from thousands of years ago?
Absolutely. That's the beauty of etymology. It's basically detective work, but for
Hmm.
words. We trace their origins, see how their meanings have morphed over time.
So it's way more than just looking up a word in the dictionary. We're talking full Sherlock Holmes for language.
Exactly. Etymologists were like word detectives. We use all sorts of tools and techniques to uncover the truth about words. We
Hmm.
got old texts, we compare different languages, study how meanings shift over time, even look at regional slang.
Sounds like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, what kind of loot are we searching for?
Well, we've got some great sources lined up. We'll be exploring the basics of etymology. Then we'll jump into the wild world of slang. And to top it off, we'll see how the 1960s totally revolutionized language.
Ooh, the 60s. That's going to be a groovy ride. But before we hop in our time machine, let's lay down some etymology fundamentals. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to My Mind Mashups so you don't miss any of the wordy wisdom coming your way. You can find us on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook.Spotify, and YouTube. All right, back to the fascinating world of words. So how do we even begin to unravel the history of a word?
Well, let's take that word you mentioned earlier, mother. Seems pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
But when you start comparing it to similar words in other languages, things get interesting, like mutter in German or matar in Sanskrit.
Wait a minute, you're telling me those words are all connected?
You bet. Etymologists have traced them back to a shared ancestor, a Proto-Indo-European root reinstructed as matura. This root gives us a glimpse into how people thousands of years ago might have referred to their mothers.
Wow, that just blows my mind. A simple word like mother has such deep roots. It's like holding a piece of history.
It really is, and every word has a story to tell. Think about the word disaster, for example. It comes from the Italian words for bad and star,
Oh.
reflecting those ancient beliefs about unlucky stars influencing our fate.
So a disaster was literally a bad star. That's so cool.
Exactly. Etymology can reveal these surprising connections between language and culture. It's like a window into the past.
I'm starting to see words in a whole new light, but how do new words even come about in the first place? Can't all be about ancient roots, right?
You're right. Languages are constantly changing. New words pop up all the time and in some pretty fascinating ways. Some words evolve gradually, like through slight changes in pronunciation or meaning over time. For instance, the Old English word hlafwerd, meaning loaf guard, eventually became lord.
Hold on. Lord originally meant someone who guards bread. That's a long way from the image of a powerful ruler.
I know, right? It's amazing how much words can change over time. And sometimes languages just straight up borrow words from other languages, like the word ballet.
Ooh la la.
That one gracefully pirouetted its way into English from French.
So we've got gradual evolution and borrowing. What other word-forming tricks does language have up its sleeve?
Well, there's compounding. That's when you combine two words to make a new one, like blackbird or smartphone.
Right? Straightforward and to the point.
And then you've got onomatopoeia, words that imitate sounds buzz.
Mm.
Hiss, meow.
Oh, I love those. They're like sound effects built into the language.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready for the grand finale of word formation. What about words that totally change their meanings?
That's semantic change, and it can be pretty wild. A great example is the word awful. Originally, it meant full of awe or worthy of respect.
You're kidding.
But nowadays, it means something unpleasant or terrible.
Whoa. Talk about a linguistic plot twist. It makes me wonder how many other words have these, secret past lives hidden behind their modern meanings.
You never know what you'll find when you start digging into the history of words. And speaking of digging, are you ready to delve into the ever-changing world of slang?
Bring on the slang. But before we do that, let's take a quick pause. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to My Mind Mashups so you don't miss any of our future deep dives. You can find us on all your favorite platforms: Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook.Spotify, and YouTube.
We'll be back in a flash. Welcome back to My Mind Mashups. Before the break, we were just about to dive into the fascinating world of slang.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to get slangy. But first things first, can you give us a quick definition of slang? What exactly are we talking about here?
Of course. Slang refers to those informal words and phrases, the ones that
Hmm.
are typically used in specific social groups. It's constantly evolving and often reflects the trends, the attitudes, even the humor of a particular community.
This is like a secret language almost. It
Yeah.
helps people bond over shared experiences.
Exactly. Slang can create a real sense of belonging, especially among younger generations or groups with shared interests. Think of it as a linguistic handshake.
Ooh, I like that. Linguistic handshake. But slang wasn't always so widely accepted, right? It had kind of shady past.
You're right. The word slang itself didn't pop up until the mid 18th century. And back then, it was associated with marginalized groups like criminals and vagrants. It was seen as this vulgar and even subversive form of language.
So slang started as a way for outsiders to communicate in secret, to keep the authorities out of the loop.
Precisely. It was a way to exclude those who weren't in the know, and it often carried some pretty negative connotations. And you know what's funny? The etymology of the word slang itself is a bit of a mystery. Some experts believe it has Scandinavian roots, possibly from the Norwegian word slenja, meaning to sling or throw words.
That is pretty ironic. A word with such a mysterious origin becomes the name for a whole category of informal language. But how did slang go from the fringes of society to something we all use today?
It was a gradual process for sure, driven in part by the rise of things like mass media and popular culture. In the 19th and 20th centuries, slang started popping up in literature music, even on the radio. It slowly but surely infiltrated mainstream language.
So slang went from underground to mainstream. That's a pretty impressive glow up. And I bet the internet supercharged that process right.
Absolutely. The internet completely revolutionized slang. With platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, slang terms can spread globally in a matter of days. It's almost impossible to keep up with the ever-changing lingo.
It's like linguistic evolution on fast forward. Speaking of evolution, our sources mention the impact of the 1960s on language. What made that decade such a turning point?
Well, the 1960s were a time of massive social and cultural upheaval. The counterculture movements, the civil rights movement, second wave feminism, all these forces challenged traditional norms, and that brought about some significant changes in language.
So language became a tool for social change.
Absolutely. New words and phrases emerged to reflect the changing social landscape. Think about terms like hippie, flower power, and psychedelia. They really encapsulated the spirit of the counterculture.
Those words are like time capsules. It's amazing how language can capture the essence of a time and place. Did any cool new slang terms come out of the 60s?
Oh, tons. The slang of the 60s was all about youth culture rebellion, breaking free from the establishment. Words like groovy for something cool, bread for money, and happening for an exciting event were all the rage.
I can practically hear the music and feel the flower power vibes just thinking about those words.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about slang, right? Didn't the way we study language also change during this time?
You're right. The 1960s saw the rise of sociolinguistics. It's a field that analyzes how language reflects social identity group membership and even power dynamics.
So instead of just focusing on the historical roots of words, sociolinguistics looks at how social factors influence the way we use language.
Precisely. Think about how people from different regions of the U.S. use different dialects and slang terms. Sociolinguistics explores those variations and helps us understand how language really shapes our social realities.
It's fascinating. It's like language is a mirror reflecting all these different human experiences. It's not just about words on a page. It's about how those words connect us, divide us, and even shape our understanding of the world.
Well said. And that brings us to a really important point. While the 1960s was a major turning point, language is always in flux. It's this dynamic system that's constantly adapting to our ever-changing world.
That's true. But if language is always evolving, how do we ever keep up with all the changes? It's like trying to hit a moving target.
That's the challenge and the beauty of studying language. It's a lifelong pursuit of trying to understand and appreciate how we communicate and how those methods are constantly evolving.
I'm up for the challenge. But before we get too lost in the ever-shifting sands of language, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to My Mind Mashups on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Spotify, and YouTube.
Welcome back to My Mind Mashups. We've been on quite the etymology adventure today, haven't we? From tracing word origins to exploring the world of slang, we even took a trip back to the groovy 1960s.
It's been a wild ride through the evolution of language.
But before we wrap up our deep dive, I gotta ask, why should our listeners care about etymology? What's the practical value in knowing where words come from?
That's a great question. I see etymology as unlocking these secret bonus features in language. It really deepens our understanding and appreciation for the words we use every day. Like when you know the backstory of a word, it's not just a label anymore. It carries all this weight of history and culture.
I like that. It's like finding out your favorite old T-shirt has this really cool backstory. It wasn't just mass-produced in a factory somewhere.
Exactly. And on a more practical level, etymology can totally boost your vocabulary. Once you understand the roots of words, you can often figure out the meanings of new words without even needing a dictionary.
So it's like a secret decoder ring for language. I'm in.
Plus, let's not forget about spelling. Those tricky silent letters and weird spellings often make more sense when you see them in their historical context. Etymology can be your secret weapon for winning those spelling bees.
Sounds like etymology is more than just a fun linguistic trivia game. It's a superpower for better communication.
It really is.
Yeah.
Plus, there's just something inherently fascinating about tracing the journey of words through time. It connects us to the past, to different cultures, to the way human thought has evolved.
It's like each word is a tiny time capsule filled with echoes of old conversations and forgotten stories.
Before we say goodbye to the wonderful world of etymology, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. We've talked about how language is always evolving and how slang reflects cultural shifts and trends. But what about the future of language? How will technology, social media, globalization, all that jazz, continue to shape the way we communicate?
That's a great question. Who knows what kind of linguistic innovations the future holds? Maybe emojis will be official parts of speech. Or we'll invent totally new words for concepts we haven't even imagined yet.
The possibilities are limitless. But one thing's for sure, the journey of language never really ends. And etymology will always be our trusty guide, helping us understand the words we use and the stories they tell.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to keep exploring the world of words and uncover all the secrets they hold.
And remember, next time you stumble upon a word that sparks your interest, don't be afraid to do a little digging and explore its origins. You never know what amazing linguistic adventures await.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into etymology. Be sure to like and subscribe to My Mind Mashups for more mind-expanding adventures into all sorts of fascinating topics.
You can find us on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Spotify, and YouTube. Until next time, keep those minds curious and stay tuned for more wordy wisdom.